Hi, this is Jay Billis of ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
The ML Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer. You know what to do. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. Just find that podcast button, for example, on an Apple phone. Tap it, the podcast button that's purple, I believe. You tap that, hit search, type in ML Sports Platter, hit subscribe, and you will get new and archived episodes of the program delivered right to your smartphone device with past guests like Cal Ripken Jr., Eric Wood, Adrian Wojnarowski, Bob Costas, and many, many more. The ML Sports Platter is brought to you by our great friends at Stanley Law Offices, Brian Comboy of Mass Mutual, New York State, and our good friends at Rosie's Corner. Pizza, wings, pasta, hot and cold subs, and more. Make sure you get on over to Rosie's every Friday for fish as well. They've got mac and cheese on Thursdays and Fridays. Gift cards are available for Father's Day upcoming here this week as well. Rosie's Corner, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor. And a big tip of the cap thank you as well to Axe Exotic Pets and the Whitaker and Swan families for their support of the ML Sports Platter. Well, let's bring in a lacrosse Hall of Famer. The resume of this guy, spectacular. 4-time All-American midfielder for the Syracuse Orange, and he's ranked 21st on SU's career goals list with 97. Scored 35 points in his freshman year, ranking him 14th all-time on the first-year players' point list. Scored at least 1 point 50 times in his SU career and had 35 multiple-point games. In his 11 NCAA playoff game appearances, he scored 13 goals and 16 assists, and, of course, knows a thing or two about being a national champion at Syracuse, and also had a pretty darn good career as the MVP for West Genesee's 1990 state championship team, All-American, All-League, and the 1990 Empire State Games gold medalist, also lettered 4 years on the basketball team. Pretty darn good. Charlie Lockwood, number 22, wore it on a dare from Coach Simmons, by the way. We're going to talk about that, but the future of Syracuse lacrosse now with Gary Gait in, John Desko retiring. Let's bring in Hall of Famer Charlie Lockwood. Charlie, it's been a while, bud. How are you, man?
Good, I'm hanging in there, man. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Before we get to the future of the program for Syracuse, Gary Gait obviously is in now. Let's start with John Desko. What have you learned from him? How will you remember him as a head coach at Syracuse, his impact on the game, his place in the game?
Well, I'm glad that you bring that up, Mike, because a lot of the focus over the last week or so has been on Gary Gait and the new hire, the excitement, and all that. I firmly believe that the Central New York community, should really take a step back, and they should celebrate John Desko. They should give this man his full due, because the things that he accomplished at Syracuse after taking over for Roy Simmons Jr., who happens to be one of the greatest college coaches of all time, John did a tremendous job. When you take over for a legend, there's a lot of questions. Can he do it? What's it going to look like? How many national championships can we expect? John Desko checked every single box that someone could check. So I firmly believe that John Desko will end up going down as one of the greatest college coaches ever. And he was a tremendous asset, not only for Syracuse University, but this entire community. So I think, being a former player of his, when I was at Syracuse, Roy Simmons Jr. was my coach. John was sort of the glue guy. He was the enforcer. He was our top assistant coach, and, he sort of kept it together. Which was so valuable at the time. So I was fortunate enough to play for him, to be a player when he was on the staff. But my hat's off to Coach Desko, the things that he's done. And, even though there's a lot of excitement about Gary Gait coming on as the coach, which I think it's warranted 10 times over, there's no guarantees, Mike, as you know, the next regime, the next coaching staff is going to have the same success. We've seen it at Syracuse University on the football side, time and time again. there's excitement, and then how does it pan out? There's just no guarantees. So that's why I think everyone should step back and really, really give it up for John Desko.
No question. So now let's move on to Gary Gait and the program. What does the future of the program look like to you under Gary Gait?
It's exciting. Like, I think that's the word that, is thrown out there a lot, and sometimes it's just loosely, used. But Gary Gait is excitement, and I think from, on the men's side of the game, Mike, he was an innovator. He was exciting. He was, he brought, that flair to the game with his creativity. And I believe that that's in his DNA, and he will try to do his very best to pass that on, that philosophy, to all the current players and future players that are going to come to the program. So, the truth of the matter is this, Mike. Gary Gait, and we're all getting older and whatnot, a lot of these recruits are 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. They weren't even a thought when Gary Gait was jumping over the cage.
Right.
In the late 80s, okay? But they can go on, YouTube, or they can go on social media and see what it was about. But, Gary still has that aura about him, and people get excited to potentially play for one of the greatest players ever. So I think Gary's biggest asset is that he's going to be a player's coach, and he's going to give the kids the freedom to go out and express themselves on the field through creative play.
Is Gary Gait kind of like the Michael Jordan of lacrosse? When like you think about those highlight plays, the cage play. It's been a while since youngsters, have seen him play. I say youngsters, and it's like 40 years old, right, or 50 or 45 years old, or people who are really, really, really young, like you say, who never saw him play. But you can go on and appreciate, what he did, and we just had the Last Dance with Michael Jordan, the '90s Bulls during the coronavirus and stuff. So I think a lot of young people who are just all in on LeBron, all in on today's NBA, they're like, "Whoa, okay, this guy was pretty good." Does Gary? I mean, is that fair to say that the Gait Jordan?
I would say it's more than fair.
Okay.
That on any level, Mike, that Gary Gait would be considered one of the greatest players of all time. So I feel extremely confident, and I hate to, single someone out or anything like that, because I've played with so many great players in my day as well. But he's a top 3, he's a top 5 player on any measure. So even if there's guys out there that don't like him for whatever reason, they're going to admit what I just said. He's a top 3 or top 5 player, even if they have their favorites. So that's the type of impact he's made, generation to generation to generation. So the things that he did for the game of lacrosse, he literally took it to another level. It's hard when you talk about players that can do that or have the ability to do it. He did it. So, you have that working for him, and I think the players can do their homework, and it only takes them about 5 minutes, Mike, to get a lot of data points on a player and a lot of footage to see what this guy was all about. And I think that in itself brings a lot of instant excitement to the program. Okay,
so one thing that is just it's a constant talking point, Charlie, and you know this. It's they got to win a championship. They haven't won a title since 2009. It's amazing. The Yankees and Syracuse Lacrosse both haven't won a title since 2009, and they're both the winningest programs in their respective sports. I tell you what, for Central New York lacrosse diehards, 12 years feels like a long time, just like 12 years feels like a long time in the Bronx. But can you give my listeners, from a lacrosse standpoint only here, how difficult it is to just win one, win one, which you won one, right? So like, how hard is it?
So here's what I would say to that, and I think it's a great question, and I think these type of conversations, Mike, need to take place more often to educate the general public. So first of all, if you go back to the late 80s, 90s, and even in the early 2000s, there was like 3 or 4 teams every year that was probably going to end up at Memorial Day playing for a national championship. Syracuse is one of those teams, okay? It was almost like, death, taxes, and Syracuse Lacrosse playing on Monday.
Charlie, it was like Alabama, Clemson now in college football.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's right, which makes those feats, like, I'm a sports guy, really impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in lacrosse specifically, I'm like, the parity, the amount of kids playing around the United States now is at an all-time high. So what that does is, if you're looking at it like from a triangle standpoint, with the very top of the triangle being Division I lacrosse, and at the bottom or the base of the triangle, that would be high school or youth lacrosse. The bottom keeps getting expanded, but there's that tip, the very tip, which is Division I lacrosse, there's only so many schools that play. There's only 50, 60, 70 programs that play. So you have all these tremendous lacrosse players vying for a few spots. Back in the day, Mike, those great players, they ended up at Syracuse, Duke, Virginia, Hopkins. You know what I mean? Like, those were the schools they went to. Now you have these great impact-type players out of high school and youth lacrosse ending up at Richmond, Jacksonville, High Point, going to the Ivy Leagues, which makes them instant competitors, instant contenders.
Yeah, and there's programs on the rise left and right. Look at my alma mater under Randy Mearns. Bonaventure's rolling now.
Yes, and that's why back in the day, if there was a new program, and we'll use St. Bonnie's as the example, I think the athletic director would have a game plan of saying, okay, hopefully in 5 or 10 years we can get there. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You don't have to wait 5 or 10 years anymore. Right. If you have someone on your staff that can recruit, there's so many great players, you can become a contender within a few years. So it's very difficult to win. So everyone needs to understand and acknowledge that. But, this is the big but, at Syracuse University, you are only judged when it comes to men's lacrosse on national championships, whether that's fair or unfair. Getting to a Final Four is very good. At Syracuse, it's very good. But you're going to be judged and you're going to be remembered by national championships. It's that simple. So if you take a look at Gary Gait and the staff he's going to assemble, he doesn't have, in my opinion, 5 or 10 years to win one. This is Gary Gait we're talking about, Mike. He's going to put together an all-star staff. In my opinion, the pressure is going to be instant, and I think fans and the general population here in Central New York, those lacrosse fans, they're going to want to see a national championship within 2-3 years. I firmly believe that. I don't think they want to wait around 5 or 10 years. We've already waited, like you just said, since 2009. That's a huge drought. I think people want to see it right away.
No doubt. Lacrosse great. Charlie Lockwood with us here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Stanley Law Offices and Rosie's Corner. You played in 4 Final Fours, I believe, right? Every single year you were in it. And one title, one runner-up as well. But in 93, your junior year, I mean, that was... That must have been the high point for you, right? I mean, my goodness, the assist against North Carolina, you had the pinpoint pass, game-winning goal in the final, I think under 8 seconds or so to go, wins the title game, and you started getting into the world and the big names in lacrosse history. You earn a roster spot as a walk-on on the hoops team, right? First player since Jim Brown to play both sports. I mean, your junior year was the pinnacle of your career, probably, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was, and I'll just say this, and I think a lot of guys that have been there would understand this statement. You can have a very, very successful individual career at Syracuse. A lot of guys come through, have wicked high-profile careers. They're, named All-American. They get all these accolades, this, that, and the other thing. At the end of the day, any player that's had individual success will tell you, Mike, and this probably goes in any sport, that unless you walk away with a national championship ring, it just doesn't seem like your career or, what you set out to do is made complete without that. And at Syracuse University, it absolutely holds true. I mean, these kids that haven't won one, remember, there's been hundreds of kids that have come through the program since 2009. They're out in the real world right now. And when they mention to people that they played lacrosse at Syracuse, the first question that gets asked to them, how many championships did you win? That's the question, Mike, right? How many championships did you win? Well, think about it. For the last 12 years, these kids are out there. The question gets asked, and they're like, none. Or we haven't even gone to a Final Four.
Right.
So that's hard to accept if you're a diehard Orange fan. But in the same breath, winning today has never been harder.
No doubt. No doubt.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, people should keep that in the back of their mind. It's wicked competitive. But, again, fair or unfair, Syracuse University, men's lacrosse, national champions. Those all go together.
Yeah.
Should go together.
Can you share for I don't even know if I know the real story to this day. I have heard versions and I don't even think you've told me. But can you share with my audience the number 22 wore it on a dare from Coach Simmons, right? Isn't there's a huge hilarious story behind that?
Well, I can tell you as an 18-year-old freshman, Mike, when I got to Syracuse the fall of my freshman year, there was nothing funny about Coach Simmons telling me to put down my high school number, which he had promised me, and pick up Gary Gait's number 22. That's a pretty terrifying event, okay? So, I'm in Manley Fieldhouse, the old Manley Fieldhouse, and we're getting ready to play Loyola in a rematch of the previous spring's national championship game. And all of us freshmen were the last ones to get our game-issued jerseys. Well, Coach Simmons was nice enough when I was at West Tennessee High School to say, you can have your number 7. I promise you that. You can have that when you get to Syracuse. I was fine with that. I was pumped. So I bent down. I grabbed my number 7. I started to walk out. He pulled me to the side, told me, he goes, Charlie, if you had any guts, you'd put down your high school number, and you'd pick that number up right there. It was 22. So, I'm like, I'm just a kid. I'm just like, what am I
Plus, you're a Central New Yorker. You played at West Jenny. You played under pressure. You grew up under the Syracuse thing.
Oh, by the way, Mike, there was 2 jerseys left on the ground, 22 and 19, Gary and Paul Gait.
There you go. Oh, my gosh.
So no one picked them up, right?
Yeah.
So I walk out onto the field to play against Loyola.
Sure.
Again, the freshmen were the last guys out of the locker room onto the field. I got guys like Tom Marichek and Pat McCabe, seasoned veterans, some of the best players of all time, looking at this 18-year-old freshman walking out with number 22 on his back. To say that I got a little bit of the business before the game even started would be the biggest understatement ever, okay? Fortunately for me, Mike, I was able to put the game-winning goal in overtime on that game, and people sort of forgot about
you arrived. Yeah, hey, I don't give a shit what number he wears.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could have done anything else, man. I needed to do something like that right away to make everyone say, okay, we're okay with this. But I got to tell you that was that moment in time, and you're just a kid. I give Coach Simmons all the credit in the world for that. That was what made him so special. He saw things like that. He challenged us. And if I don't do that, it's, who knows, But I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I was able to be part of the 22 history at Syracuse.
All right, final question for you in the couple minutes I have left. What makes a great midfielder in lacrosse?
Well, you remember, a lot has changed in the last 20, 30 years, but I'll tell you from my point of view that I can really, really respect a midfielder today that can play both ends of the field, both as an offensive threat and a defensive threat. You'll see in today's game, Mike, there's a lot of specialized players. So that's why you see so much activity in the box, people changing in and out of the game. Some coaches only want guys in there that they think they're strong on defense, and then vice versa on the other side, only strong on offense. I really appreciate guys that can do it on both ends, even if they don't score a ton of goals and have a ton of assists, but they can actually change the outcome of games in between the lines. I look for that toughness, two-way tough middies.
Well, he played in the Final Four 4 times, won a national championship, and just had an unbelievable career at Syracuse University. Lacrosse Hall of Famer going all the way back to his West Jenny days as well. Really a lacrosse legend, a guy I respect a lot. And, of course, proud to call him my friend, Charlie Lockwood. Thank you so much, bud.
All right, Mike, we'll talk to you soon. Hopefully we'll do this again in the upcoming season.
The ML Sports Platter is brought to you by our great friends over at Liverpool Physical Therapy, Axe Exotic Pets, and Heather Saxton. Folks, home is more than just a place. It's a feeling. So reach out to Heather Saxton today, 315-727-3313. She is a licensed real estate salesperson who gets it done, knows the pulse of real estate in Central New York. If you're buying and selling a home, it's stressful. It's time-consuming. It stinks. But with Heather, it's a lot easier. I'm telling you. Go with her, Heather at Hunt on Facebook, 315-727-3313. A licensed real estate salesperson, Heather Saxton, under the Hunt Real Estate umbrella, the official real estate agent of the ML Sports Platter. I want to spend a few minutes in closing, and Charlie Lockwood's such a great interview. Could have him on for an hour to talk about everything, really. But his lacrosse knowledge and his the way he looks at the game and the way he understands the game and how he understands eras and who he's been around, the players he played with, the resume. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's a Hall of Fame dude too. But I wanted to spend a little bit of time myself on the John Desko thing. John Desko is, my gosh, look, I mean, the resume is incredible, right? Played for Syracuse from 76 to 79. Played high school lacrosse at West Genesee, obviously, before Syracuse. So he's a lot like Charlie Lockwood. These guys, listen, if you grow up in Central New York, you know Syracuse Lacrosse. You know the history. If you grow up with the sport, it's times 100. My high school had lacrosse. I didn't play lacrosse. A lot of my friends played lacrosse, but I knew it right away early because I was a diehard young sports fan. Like, I bothered, all the time I would bother my dad. When I was a little kid, I'd bother him to go see all the football games, all the basketball games, not necessarily lacrosse games because it wasn't, in my first interest level, but you knew of them, right? You knew about that program. And then as I got older and I went to college and graduated from Bonaventure and then worked in the media and started to cover more games and things, I started to really get a grip of the SU lacrosse thing. And, you it's ingrained in you. It's a part of life. It's a walk of life. And Syracuse lacrosse fans, the Central New York lacrosse diehards, I mean, there's a lot of them. I know a lot of them. When that dome has, 10, 11, 12,000 people in it now for an ACC game or for a Hopkins game or for whatever game, Virginia, Duke, etc., Carolina, Notre Dame, that tough schedule they play now in conference and out of conference. Yeah, that place gets rocking and people are crazy. And if Syracuse lacrosse loses, it ruins their day. So Desko, like Lockwood, knows the pressure and what the Syracuse lacrosse thing has been about for years and years and years and years. And I think it's absolutely, positively impressive that John Desko not only welcomed the pressure, but he probably exceeded, and a lot of people, he hasn't won a title since 2009. Well, he's got 5 NCAA championships, right? Like, 5 is pretty good, period. He's got as many Division I championships as Mike Krzyzewski, but people in Syracuse are talking about how he hasn't won one since 2009. He has as many lacrosse championships as head coach as Mike Krzyzewski does at Duke in 40-ish years as head coach. And by the way, John Desko coached Syracuse from 1999 to 2021. He was an assistant before that for 18 years paying his dues. Some of those dynasty teams for Syracuse lacrosse. Then finally he takes over 99, and they win 5 under him. He won 5 lacrosse national championships in half the years that Coach K has won his 5. Now, I understand they're different sports, NCAA tournament, more teams, more this, more. The game's evolved, the game's changed in both areas. I get that. But just think about that for a second. The next time you're like, oh man, Desko, Syracuse, 12 years. Is it a huge drought? It is. Are people hungry? Of course. We know about the expectations. Charlie Lockwood just talked about it a lot. He's right. Fairly or unfairly, you're a player at Syracuse. Did you win a title or no? Like, you're judged on all that stuff. Yes, 12 years is a long time. But I also have to step back a little bit and go, geez, 5 national championships he still won. It's kind of like being a Yankee fan. I mean, my lifetime Yankee fandom, I would still take, obviously, over every baseball team. The recent years have been pretty brutal. I'm not a Brian Cashman guy. They're not constructed the right way. I've been down this road a million times. I've barked up this tree a million times. But I'll still take 5 World Series championships, 7 pennants, 14 division championships, 21 or so playoff appearances. I mean, I'll take that. Like I'm good. I'll take that. 21, 22 playoff appearances. Overall, I'll take that. All the Red Sox fans who talk junk, whatever. 4 titles since 04. I still got one more. 04 was brutal, but I still got one more. I still have 3 more pennants than most, if not all. And some of them have 86, so I guess it's 5, 7-5 at this point. But you get the point. You have to, at some point, even when you know the realistic goals, expectations, the drought, all the stuff that goes on, you have to know at some point. You got to peel back a little bit and go, damn. I mean, this guy, 5 national championships, 4 Big East Conference championships, 2 ACC tournament championships, 1 ACC regular season championship. He's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame, USILA Division Coach of the Year, 4-time ACC Coach of the Year. By the way, head coach for United States men's lacrosse, national lacrosse team, and World Lacrosse Championship. He won in 2006. And, it all started, Simmons offered Desko an assistant job when Jay Gallagher decided to leave Syracuse. By the way, Desko made $1,000 a year as a coach. Waited tables in his spare time. He grinded 19 years, takes over for Roy Simmons Jr. And by the way, he became the first person outside of the Simmons family to coach Syracuse Lacrosse since 1931. You want to talk about some pressure? Holy cow. Holy cow. So he won 5 as a head coach. He won 6 more as assistant coach. In his first 11 years as a head coach, he coached the Syracuse Lacrosse team to 7 NCAA final appearances and 9 Final Fours. 9 Final Fours. I mean, that's a big time. That's just a big time resume. So, and I've interviewed John multiple times. I wish him all the best in retirement. He is literally one of the good guys. I mean, one of the great people in sports. One of the people I've enjoyed talking with and following and rooting for. And what a career. What a career for John Desko. Hope he enjoys retirement. And hoping to get him on in the near future as well. Mike Lindsley with you. It's the ML Sports Platter all over the major platforms like Spotify, Google, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, and all the others. Just download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. You can hit me on all the social platforms, including Twitter, @MikeLSports. And, of course, be on the lookout for my 1-minute videos, the ML Sports Takes on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, IGTV and Instagram. And, of course, make sure to follow me on Instagram as well, ML Sports Platter. You can also like the ML Sports Platter page on Facebook as well, trying to throw out some cool questions and topics and things of that nature in the world of sports. We are presented by Stanley Law Offices. Together, they'll work to get you the maximum award. Make sure that you do. Log on to StanleyLawOffices.com for more information. Big tip of the cap, thank you as well to the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, Rosie's Corner, and Welch & Company Jewelers. Hey, the best jewelry is at welchjewelers.com. Shop the showcase, engagement rings, wedding rings, you name it. Welch & Company Jewelers is a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor, the official jewelry store of the platform. Daniel Luce and the gang doing an amazing job. Watches, necklaces, bracelets, you name it. Shop the showcase, see the deal of the week. It's all there at welchjewelers.com. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.